Hi, everybody. This is Michael Cole from Mike and Sarah's Best Picture podcast. I'm coming to you alone today. Today is the 4th of March, and as you might know, the Oscars will be tonight. Now, I wanted to do a little bonus episode. I did not see any of the previous Best Pictures to talk about today. Um, Basically, I wanted to talk about something called the Best Picture Showcase. Now, the Best Picture Showcase is something that AMC Theaters does every year, where they show the Best Picture nominees in a marathon, or in the last few years, it's been two separate marathons. Now that there's more than five nominees. My friend Kim and I have been doing the Best Picture Showcase. This was our 10th year going. We started it with the year that No Country for Old Men won. Um, and it was only five movies back then, and it was just the Saturday before the Oscars. You'd go and you'd sit through from about 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. roughly to see all the Best Picture nominees. When they moved it up to more than five, it became the Saturday before and the Saturday before that. I do know that there are some 24-hour marathons in some of the bigger cities. We have not chosen to do that. We talked about it possibly the first couple years that it was offered, but to be completely honest, neither of us has the energy to do that anymore. We're getting old. I have a son that I want to be awake and um, conscious for. So we just haven't been able to do the 24-hour marathon. Now, since they've started separating into two Saturdays, there's been a lot of years where I've only been able to go to one Saturday. I want to say I've only been to 1 or 2 years where I've been to both Saturdays. I worked retail for a long time. It was hard to get Saturdays off. Um, But basically, and this year I only went to yesterday's, and due to some travel issues, because Kim lives in Philadelphia now, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. We met in the DC area, and that was 4 hours of driving, and so I did end up skipping the last two movies just so that I did not die in a car accident on the way home. Um, So I only got to see three Best Picture nominees this year. I will be seeing Get Out later today, probably because it's on HBO. But I wanted to tell you my thoughts on the three that I saw and tell you some of the things that Kim told me. Um, so let's dive right into that. Last week, Kim went and saw the movie Lady Bird. Um, she said that Lady Bird was very good. She didn't think that it had much chance of winning. She thinks Laurie Metcalf has a decent chance of winning Best Supporting Actress, but she didn't think it had much chance of winning Picture or Actress. She didn't really comment on Director. The next movie she saw was Three Billboards, which she thinks is one of the two favorites to win. She said it was her favorite of all the movies she'd seen by the time I finished speaking with her last night. She had at that point she had not seen The Post or Get Out yet, but she loved that movie. She thinks Frances McDormand has a an excellent job, an excellent chance at winning Best Actress. The next film that she saw was the Shape of Water. Something you have to understand about Kim is that Kim doesn't like science fiction, so when we went and saw District 9 a few years ago, and Avatar, and this year with Shape of Water, it's just not her cup of tea. So she didn't like it. She does think that um, she tends to have the opinion that if something's really beloved that she doesn't like, she thinks it has a really good chance at winning because she thinks it's how the Academy works, which is always entertaining to me. Um, I am forgetting what the fourth movie was. I will come back to it. Um, so, yesterday we started off with the movie Dunkirk. Now, I did not have any real expectation going into Dunkirk. Um, I didn't know. I knew that Christopher Nolan directed it. Um, and I'm kind of mixed on Christopher Nolan movies, to be completely honest with you. I think that he does something really amazing visually a lot of times, but I tend to think that there are I think he gets more credit story wise than he deserves. Like I think that uh, Inception was it was a fun movie, but I do think that it was not as deep or great as people would like us to believe. I think that I think Dunkirk kind of falls into what I consider um, the other category of Christopher Nolan movies, and that is it's a movie that you've heard of, but you don't you. I personally had only heard one or two people say that they had seen it and thought it was good. I hadn't heard anybody else that said they had seen it because it just wasn't. It didn't seem to get that much notice. And those movies tend to be my preference with Christopher Nolan. Like you may have heard of The Prestige, but I know that a lot of people have not seen The Prestige, and I think that's an excellent film. I think that up until yesterday, I thought that might be his actual masterpiece. Obviously, The Dark Knight is excellent, and Memento is great, but the Prestige was this amazing film that kind of got overlooked by a lot of people, and it to me was always the superior film to um, Inception. So yesterday with Dunkirk, I thought Dunkirk was added to that level, to the Prestige level. I thought that the film's not only excellent, but it is also um, it keeps you riveted from the very moment it begins until the moment it ends. It is. I actually thought at about halfway through the movie or so, is there going to be like any like real breath in this movie? Because you kind of think of movies as having heightened action, and then there's like a lull to kind of like let the audience settle while the characters catch their breath. And I kind of think this film didn't have it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that can be a really good thing depending on how it's done. And I think in this film it was excellent. Um, the only other movie that has ever like really, for me, felt like it kept going from start to finish in a perfect way was like Mad Max Fury Road. Um, I think that this was a different kind of thing. There were lots of moments where there was stillness, but the music during that stillness was heightened, and there was tension in that stillness. So it was you were never even in those moments, those quiet moments, and those moments where the characters weren't moving or doing much. It was because they were waiting and silently because they were hiding from a plane or whatever. So Dunkirk is incredible visually. It's incredible pacing wise. The one small complaint is kind of the complaint that I have with a lot of Nolan movies, and that is that I couldn't understand a good amount of the dialogue. Um, I don't think I necessarily needed to. I mean, this film, in a lot of ways, plays almost like a silent film, and but there's plenty there. There is a good amount of dialogue. I'm not saying it's a silent film, but like I think in a lot of ways the beats are hit in a way that you don't need the dialogue, um, which is great because I there was like especially Tom Hardy. I know Tom Hardy kind of gets this bad rap for it, but Tom Hardy is in it, and I don't know that I could understand almost anything he was saying. Um, anyway, so that was an excellent film. The next film, and I think this was an issue with AMC's scheduling. I think this should not have been done this way, but the next film was The Darkest Hour. Now, The Darkest Hour is about Winston Churchill and him taking the position of prime minister, and the first month or so that he's prime minister, and the big crisis of the first month or so that he's prime minister is um, I don't know if they call it a battle or an attack or what, but the Dunkirk, the events of the movie Dunkirk, um, are the issues that Winston Churchill is trying to move through and trying to fix. And so I think it was a real mistake playing the two films back to back. I understand that they may have felt like a companion piece. Maybe that's why they did it. But to be completely honest with you, there was two reasons why I think it was a mistake. One, it, Dunkirk is the far superior film in a significant amount of ways. I think that Dunkirk. I think Dunkirk actually, by seeing it and then immediately seeing Darkest Hour, I was aware that Darkest Hour is just not that good of a film. I I think, and I haven't seen, I've only seen three of nine, so take that with a grain of salt. But of the three that I saw, uh, Darkest Hour is the weakest. I think Darkest Hour is weak in general for a Best Picture nominee. Um, I think that the big thing with Darkest Hour that I want to talk about is there tends to be this issue that we as a culture get into with if a movie has a really good acting performance and the story is passable, we think it's a good film. Now, I'm going to say something super unpopular, but the best example I can think of is American History X. Edward Norton is incredible in American History X, and the story is fine. But the movie itself is not a good movie. There's all kinds of like little like filmmaking hiccups, and there's unevenness, and it's just not a great movie overall. It's an excellent acting performance with a passable storyline, and that's what I think um, this movie, The Darkest Hour, is. And I would go one further and say that that the acting performance itself, even which I know people are talking about Gary Oldman winning Best Actor, and he's favored to win Best Actor. I don't think I've only seen two of the actor nominees. Um, I don't think he deserves to win based on his acting. I think his acting was good. There was nothing too flawed in it. I think the problem with actor, the category of best actor, is many times the thing that wins best actor is not best actor, it is most actor. Like the most acting done in a performance. And sometimes that is amazing. You get something like Raging Bull. Robert De Niro in Raging Bull did probably the most acting of that year, but he also it's one of the best performances of all time. But then the problem with most acting is that you get something that is subtle and truly like perfect as an acting performance, and it gets overlooked because it's too natural. It's not. It doesn't seem as transformative, and um, so it ends up being overlooked a little bit. Even though a lot of times these performances get nominated, you get people frustrated that certain things won over whatever. The big example being Leonardo DiCaprio. I like his performances, but it's not that I don't think I have not seen the one that he won the Oscar for, but every other performance, and people for years were making memes about how he shouldn't have been beaten. But the problem is that his performances were always the most acting, and I really, having seen most of those categories, never thought that it was best actor. Um, so I don't think Gary Oldman is the best actor this year. I think that he did a great. It was a good performance, but I think the best actor that I've seen of the two of the five performances was in the next film, which was Call Me by Your Name. Timothy, I'm gonna probably screw up his name, but Timothy Chalamet in that movie deserves Best Actor, and he would be the youngest Best Actor winner by years. And so that there may be a chance that the Academy won't vote for him because of that, because he's probably not a huge name yet. Especially he's in a category with Denzel Washington and Daniel Day-Lewis, and and arguably Daniel Kaluuya is a bigger name also, and Get Out is a bigger film for sure. That even whether you think it's a better or not, it's a bigger film than Call Me by Your Name. Now I haven't seen Get Out, so I can't talk on that. I'm just talking about how the Academy works, not necessarily about what the best actor performance is. But Timothy Chalamet in Call Me by Your Name is excellent, and the reason he's excellent is because, and the reason he's excellent, and the reason I think he could get overlooked is his performance is natural. He plays the perfect teenage boy who is, is a mix of nervous and cocky and lustful and intelligent and explorative. I personally think that this performance is the best that I've seen in a long time, and probably the last couple of years. I'm trying to think of what, like, I know that Casey Affleck was good, but like, again, and Casey Affleck's probably a good example of somebody who did not do the most acting. So that's hopefully that's a good sign. Especially Denzel tends to, even though Denzel's excellent, Denzel tends to be a most actor, and that gets confused a lot. Um, I should say this too: when these people are doing most acting, they have to be very good actors to be able to pull off most acting and make you think it's good. Because if you're not a good actor, you end up with these performances that the best example I can say, because I've seen all these like parodies or these like clips and like on of compilations of scenes, is like Elizabeth Berkley in Showgirls. That's most acting also, but there was no like talent behind that. Whereas Daniel Day-Lewis and Leonardo DiCaprio, these guys are excellent actors who act the most. So I think I want to clarify that. These are not bad actors. These are very, very good actors who just act more, and I think in their performances, and I think something like Timothy Chalamet will get overlooked. Now I want to talk about the film itself. Um, Personally, I don't know what its chances are at winning. It doesn't seem like it's really in the race. It seems like the race is between Three Billboards and Shape of Water, from what I've heard and from what I've read. Um, I think this movie was excellent. The it takes place in 1983. It's about a 17-year-old boy living at his parents' Italian villa for the summer, and his father, who's a professor, has a grad student come to help him with some projects, as he does every summer, and the grad student, played by Armie Hammer, and him form a romantic sexual relationship, even though the guy's 24. I think they said he was 24 in the thing that I saw. They don't mention the movie specifically. Um, it is the performances between Armie Hammer, the relationship that they capture between Armie Hammer and Timothy Chalamet is excellent. They do a great job of building the relationship. We see there's animosity at first, jealousy. These two guys are fighting over the father's attention. They don't seem to like each other much at first. It's very brotherly, and then it slowly evolves into a sexual and romantic relationship. Um, and now obviously we're talking about a 17-year-old and a 24-year-old, and so one thing that I thought was interesting is that they did a good job. I felt like they did a good job of not making it um, super aggressy, or predator type relationship, which, as much as it's taboo, and I personally, like, I wouldn't want heterosexual or homosexual. I wouldn't want my child in a relationship with an adult when they're 17, but um, the way the film handles it does seem to be less taboo than I would have expected in real life. I don't know much about, when I was 17. I didn't have any kind of experience with with any partners, let alone partners not my own age, like dating much. I don't think by the time I was almost 18, I had gone on a couple of dates, like, but like they were very almost platonic dates. So I have no history with this. And so personally, I'm not sure I can like, I wouldn't want to say I condone what goes on in the movie, but I think that it, it's not as clear. It does not seem predator. It doesn't seem like a predator type relationship. So that's like an important thing to remember. Now, I will say one thing that did make me uncomfortable in the film is that Timothy Chalamet, when they started filming, or when they auditioned him, he was 17. He's now about 22. I think heard in an interview. Uh, he has the body like of a boy, like because they show him very close to naked a bunch of times, and he has what I would consider a childlike body. Like it's not a grown body, and there are scenes with him with a young girl who seems she's about his age. I would assume that they actually show her a little bit more naked, and so I would assume that she's supposed to be roughly 18 or so, and so it doesn't seem that seems very natural. But when they show him laying in bed shirtless next to Army Hammer is in real life, I believe he's about my age, so 32, 33, and he does not have a child's body. Whether and I don't, and when I say that, I don't mean like they have abs, like they both are in very good shape, but I'm talking about there is this aesthetic thing about a body that like as a man, like I started to notice the difference. When I would brush my teeth without a shirt on or whatever over the course of 10 years or 15 years, like, oh, at some point my arms stopped looking like a little boy's arms and started looking like a man's arms. Now I'm overweight, so I will not compare myself to Army Hammer at all. But my point being, it was such a stark contrast, and it's not something that can be really faked. Obviously, like I guess you have that boy-like body, and like I had that boy-like body until probably until like my mid 20s. Um, even when even though in many ways my body probably didn't look that different than it does today, there was lots of aesthetic differences that I wouldn't be able to necessarily describe, but I could see. And that's a huge thing in this movie that kind of made me uncomfortable because it did accentuate the difference in their ages. But that being said, it was not, like I said before, not a predatory relationship. It was not, it was very consensual. And so I think I find it hard to like judge it because they're like it's on that line of is this right or wrong? Just like 17 as an age of in some places that would be old enough to consent, in other places it would not be, and like there's all kinds of it's gray area. There's a clear line with all these gray area issues. There's a clear line as to where oh that is wrong, and then there's a clear line as to where oh that is no longer wrong. But there's a whole bunch in between, and I think that this film kind of falls into that area. And so I don't say that as a judgment. I just say that as honest. Like that's what I saw in this film. Um, so I left because I had a 4 hour ride and I had to pick up my wife from the airport last night, and so I left before the film The Post, which you may have heard about. That is about the Washington Post, um, and the Washington Post, and I believe their handling of the Nixon the Watergate scandal, um, and that film I honestly didn't have interest in. It seemed very Oscar bait type of movie. With you get Steven Spielberg that had directed it, Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep. It's a topic that right now I think because of our current political climate, I think in Hollywood it tends to be reflected as, like my Kim said to me last night, and I think she's right. And keep in mind, we neither of us had seen the. I still have not, but neither of us had seen the film at the time. Kim said if this movie came out when we did not have our current political climate, it would have gotten overlooked for Oscars. But I think people, she said, I think people wanted to see, or people enjoyed seeing this. Liberal people enjoyed seeing this idea of Nixon because they keep wanting to draw the comparison. Now, I'm not saying that as somebody who agrees or disagrees with the politics, but I'm saying that I think that whether you regardless of which side of that issue you're on, I think that it's a true statement. I think that, and I haven't seen the film to know how good a quality it is, but I suspect that if this movie had come out 3 years ago, it wouldn't have gotten this attention that it has, and it hasn't gotten that much attention for a Best Picture nominee either. So that's for the first thing. Secondly, I think that it would have gotten largely overlooked. Meryl Streep would have gotten nominated probably still, but the rest of it probably would not have happened. After that was Get Out. Like I said, I'm going to be watching that later today because it is on HBO. Um, uh, I'm really excited to see it. I've wanted to see it for a while. I know that it's like I'm, about a year late to the party on that. But to be completely honest, I don't get to see horror films. My wife is not particularly a fan of them. She didn't really like Key and Peele, and so there's a whole bunch of reasons. Also, I haven't seen movies in theaters, so it's just been tough to see that one. Oh, and the last film that I forgot from last week was The Phantom Thread. Daniel Day-Lewis is nominated. So is the supporting actress Leslie Manville. I didn't see this one. Kim said that it was very bizarre. She didn't want to tell me too much because of spoilers, and I won't tell you anything because of spoilers. But it is. She said it was very weird, and that she thinks Daniel Day Lewis was brilliant as ever. Now, personally, I don't know what Daniel Day Lewis's chances are tonight. I know that he already has 3 Best Lead Actor Oscars, which is more than any other male actor. And if he wins tonight, he will tie Katharine Hepburn for most um, acting wins of all time. I don't know. I know that it's his last film, and a lot of times that will politically take some kind of consideration. Um, and again, I haven't seen the performance, so I don't, I can't compare it to what I've seen. Um, but all I'll say is that, I personally didn't find much interest in this movie. Um, the director is Paul Thomas Anderson. He's also nominated for Best Director for this. Um, I am split on Paul Thomas Anderson movies, and I know that probably I'm probably like in the minority here, but I loved Will There Will Be Blood. I think it deserved to win the year that it won. No Country for Old Men beat it, but I think There Will Be Blood was a better film. Um, I did not. I wanted to see The Master so bad, and I took Adam, my best friend, who is the co-owner of Chocolate Diamond Media, with me. We went and saw the film. I like dragged him because I wanted to see it so bad. And by the end of the movie, he was literally like, "What the hell did you just make me watch?" Um, I remember thinking Magnolia was good, but not understanding the hype. And I remember liking Boogie Nights, but not really loving. Like it was good. It was, but after The Master, I didn't go see I cannot think of the name of the one with him and Joaquin Phoenix as like a loopy detective or whatever that movie was. So I wasn't super excited to see this film. To be completely honest, which is fine. But um, and I love Daniel Day-Lewis. I think he's a great actor. I personally don't know that we need to be, I don't know that Academy needs to be giving actors 4 Academy Awards unless it's truly deserved. So that's all I want to say is like if he acted circles around everybody else and I tend to think that sometimes he is a best actor and not a most actor, which is a tough balance. Then I think give it to him, but if he's not the clear winner, I hope that they pick somebody else. To be honest. Um, all right, so that is all of the nominees. If you're going to be watching the Oscars, I hope you have a great time doing so. I'm excited that Jimmy Kimmel is hosting again, especially after last year being probably the most exciting Academy Awards with that the now infamous screw up at the end. I'm sure this year will be pretty good ratings because of that and because of Jimmy Kimmel hosting again. I personally don't care. I think that they need to stop caring about the ratings because the ceremony itself has become this bizarre thing. It's them celebrating themselves, but for some reason they're really trying to entertain us in the process, even though it's not at all for us. Um, but yeah, basically that's the nominees. Hope you have fun. I do want to say we were not able to put up an episode this past week. We were going to do Cavalcade from 1933. The recording it sounded really, really bad. And so Sarah and I will be re-recording possibly later today. That will be up on Wednesday as usual. And then we will move forward on to our next film, which will be the, what the hell's the name? Yeah, we'll be on to the next one, which is with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. It happened one night. Um, so I hope that you have fun. Please check us out on chocolatediamondmedia.com. You can check out any of my writing on michaelchristophercole.com, or if you're more into the comic books and genre films and things like that, you can read my writing on those topics at best-media-world.com. Have a great day, and we will be back on Wednesday.